So this month we're going to talk about schedules, as in door, window, lighting, and so forth. Um, and it's a topic we haven't touched on in a couple of years, but a couple of years goes fast. So um, this will be a slightly different take from, I believe it was July of 2020. So just a tad more than 2 years ago. I'm going to be using a couple of project files from our office to uh, demonstrate this topic. And what I'd like to do is kind of go through the very basic sort of approach to scheduling, something that requires the minimal amount of work on the user's part, and then gradually work up to a more custom kind of approach, which, once you've got the basics down, you may decide that something that is worth a little extra effort on your part to get that working. So this is a project we recently completed, and there's obviously a lot of things in even a relatively straightforward residential project that can be scheduled: doors, windows, of course, lighting, maybe even furniture if you've got a kind of an interior component to your work. So we'll start with that. So let's have a look at the floor plan, and as I move around and highlight some of these things, let me go ahead and pop open the object info palette. And so here's a door inserted in a wall. It's just a standard Vectorworks plugin. We've created a door style to mimic a vinyl sliding, or actually a fiberglass sliding unit, a plastic door. And we might want to schedule it. So if we look at the settings on a door, over here at the very bottom of the settings is a data tag, or tab rather. And you can see that there's some of the data for the door is assigned to the door style itself. So the manufacturer, the model, perhaps the color, whatever, can be assigned to the style. So that's uniformly applied to every instance of the door. And then some of those fields that perhaps have a slider next to them, this little slider icon, those are user definable. Actually, the rough opening and the rough opening width and height and masonry opening and net glazed area, those are indirectly editable by editing the unit size itself. So we've got a variety of doors in the project, of course, some of which are exterior doors, some are sliders, some are swing doors, some are interior doors. And those are also styled. They don't have to be for scheduling to work, but that's just a nice way to automate or streamline some of your data entry. So having done all the work of inserting all of those doors, we're going to want to create a door schedule. And the easiest way to do that is to go to your tools and reports, and go ahead and create a report. By the way, I should interrupt myself right now real quick just to check in with everybody. Is the screen resolution legible for everyone? Go ahead and unmute yourself if the icons or the text are too tiny, and I'll just go ahead and adjust my
Looks
screen?
good.
It looks good.
Okay,
Very good.
you can read everything. Okay, terrific. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to go over here to tools and reports, and I'm going to have a variety of commands here. I will just go ahead and let's go ahead and create a report here. And so when I do that, I've got custom or pre-formatted reports. And under pre-formatted reports, you can see that there is quite a list of automatic schedules and worksheets and so forth that Vectorworks will generate for us right out of the box. So I'm just going to scroll down over here to door schedule, and it'll ask me if I want to place the report on the drawing. I can remove it, and that's fine. So I'll hit OK. And I already have a door schedule in this file, of course. So I'll just call this door schedule demonstration, so as to not overwrite the one that I want. And then I get this little insertion object, and there's my door schedule. So as you can see, the default door schedule is really quite detailed. It's giving me the door mark, its width, height, thickness, the configuration, all sorts of fields. And you may be wondering, well, where is it getting all of this? Where it's getting all of that is, if we go back to this door here and go to its settings and click on the data, many of those door schedule fields are being derived from all of these data fields that are available. And some of them are coming from the object itself, such as its width and its height, whether it's a slider, what the operation is, and so on and so forth. So the nice thing about this door schedule that Vectorworks gives you is that it's already formatted. It looks okay. It is highly detailed, and it has everything you could possibly extract from that door and put into a schedule. That's the good news. And for many projects, that might be more than you really need. So one approach would be to go ahead and create this automatic schedule. And then if I double click on it, then I'm entering the worksheet. So when we go to the tools menu and create a report like we just did to get this door schedule, all of these reports are essentially pre-generated, pre-created worksheets. So this is rather hard to see. So I'm going to zoom into, maybe 150%, maybe 200%. So everyone can see what's going on, right? And so one of the things I can do with doors is I can have a prefix, right? So I could number them D, right? I can have a suffix. So that's under mark. That's what these blank columns are. Well, on such a small project, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to number my doors sequentially 1 to whatever, N. So I don't really need those. So one option is to simply delete that column, right? If I don't need it, and that's great. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Another option, if I think I may want that column later, I don't need it now, instead of deleting it, is I'm just going to go over here between the A and the B, the column headers. And you can see that when I hover over that, my icon, hopefully you can see, changes to this sort of horizontal line with an arrowhead to the left and the right and a vertical break. And so I can just take that A and just reduce its width to 0. Likewise with the C, I'm going to grab the right-hand one and reduce its width to 0. and maybe format column D and make it centered. And then also reduce that, and so on and so forth, right? So the reason that I'm making those columns disappear to 0 is that, again, I may want to bring them back at some later time. Once they've been stretched, though, I can't unstretch them. So the trick to bring them back is I just highlight the spanning columns and then go to format column width and just give it some width, and then you can see that column C comes back like that. So I could just go to all my columns and give them some default width and then come back and edit them. So by hiding, if you will, certain columns that Vectorworks automatically generates, I don't really need to schedule that every one of these windows has a square top shape. So I can just, reduce that. None of these have side lights, so I can just take the left and right side lights and take those 3 columns and reduce them to 0, and so on and so forth. And I haven't bothered to key in where the head jamb and sill details go. There's just 1 or 2 detail sheets, so that's not really necessary. It's residential, there's no fire rating, and so on and so forth. So I could just go through and edit this door schedule and get it down to something that I find that's more manageable. And then the other thing that I would need to do is, you can see that these are just placed sequentially, kind of willy-nilly, and obviously I want them to be ordered in some fashion. And so what I can do is, you can see that over here at cell number 4, there's this little pull down, drop down arrow here at cell 4B, the window mark. And can you see that that pulls up a pop-up menu? Sometimes Zoom hides pop-up menus.
Yeah, we got them.
Great, fantastic. And so what I can do is I can sort these in ascending order and hit OK. And now they're numbered 1 through 28, whatever. When I close this door schedule, you can see that that updates the version that's on the sheet, and I can eventually sort of edit this down to something that's a little bit more manageable for my purposes. Now, in a large commercial project, you'd probably be perfectly happy with the door schedule and not have to edit it down, except maybe make some minor formatting changes to your default font or whatever. So this is, it's just very, it's highly automated, right? You don't really need to know, in order to use this kind of automatic scheduling, you don't need to know how Vectorworks does this. You don't need to know any scripting. You don't need to really kind of peek under the hood. A couple of cool features that I know we've covered before. Let's say you are not really sure which door number 10 is, right? So you can highlight this cell, and if you right click on the column to the left here, the 4.10, you can see that you get a little pop-up menu by right clicking on it, and you can select the item. And then Vectorworks will go ahead and focus and take you right to the item, wherever it is in the drawing. So that's a great way to find something if you aren't really sure, what it is that you want to do. And while you're here, you may be looking at this door. Right, it's kind of popping up and down. You may be looking at this door and you may be thinking, well, that's that's probably wider than I really need it to be, or maybe it's too narrow, or maybe I don't want a 6'8" door. So you can go ahead and edit this 4 feet, for example, and unlikely, but maybe you'd make it 4'8". So two 4 leaves, and you can see that the door has gone ahead and reshaped itself in the object info palette and on the drawing itself. I can undo so that you can see that directly. Undo, and there it is. It's 4 feet.
Hey, Francois,
Yeah.
can you go back to your door schedule for a second? The column 4. So are they adding up all the like numbers, like all the thicknesses? Is that where you get 3'8"?
Yeah. That's
That hides goes away when you click out of that.
yep.
And-
So that's the database header row, and you can see that in the door schedule itself, that row does not appear. So in older versions of Vectorworks, you would have to under the view menu, you would have to uncheck database headers, and it would hide that for you under the view menu. Or if you checked it, it would reveal it. And if you didn't hide it and you printed your project and you had your schedule, you would get a question just like the one you asked, Ron, from your contractor, wanting to know, why did you tally the total height of all the doors in this project? That is not useful information, and my framers are very confused. Right. So so in more recent versions of Vectorworks, that row is always hidden when you show the worksheet on the schedule. It's really just a utilitarian.
Yeah. So is there any use for any of those other than just getting your marks to be numerically in order?
Yeah. So if you click on one of these cells, right, it's a kind of a good segue to the next step, but this is a good time to answer that. If you click on one of these cells, let me see if I know the keyboard shortcut to do this. You can see I'm clicking over here in door width, and you can see that it says equals parentheses door dot width close parentheses. So this is where Vectorworks plugs in the scripting that has your worksheet report these values. Now, another thing you should know about this row, if you hide it, right? I can't edit those values. So I can't, other than editing certain cells like the width and the height and perhaps the configuration, right? That's not really very editable because some of the fields are just being reported. But the other thing is if I right click on this row 4 here, it reports it as a database. And you can see that I can edit criteria. So the criteria here, again, this is all sort of this is all set up for you, but it's a good thing to learn from. This is kind of why I start with this worksheet or this report or schedule, because it's a good way to kind of dissect it and then learn how to make your own. You can see that all the criteria in this set are going to be displayed in the decimal numbered cells below 4.1 through 4.28 or whatever. So it's looking for any object who has the door record attached to it, and that would be a plug-in door object, right? And it would also have need to have the field value on schedule true. So what's up with that? Well, Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, I think I probably have one over here. You can't see it, but I know it's there. You can barely see it. If I click over here, you can see that I have a door in wall. If I delete it, you can see that this wall runs straight across. And I have a door in that wall, and it's unstyled, and it's just making an opening, right? So rather than have a wall end here and then have to come back, because that wall continues above the door. This is kind of a vaulted space. So rather than have the wall return and then have to add another wall above it or some other modeling element to create the wall above the opening, I've just inserted an opening in that wall. But it's not really a door. I don't really want to schedule it. And so one of my options for a door or a window is I can include on schedule. I don't know if you can see that here on the data tag. Include that on schedule. Right over here. So if I include that on schedule, then it will have, if I go back to edit my criteria, its field value on schedule is going to be marked as true. And so it will show up on the door schedule. So by deselecting include on schedule for doors or windows or whatever, I'm going to exclude them from the schedule when I'm using the door modeling object, but it's not literally a real world door. The other thing that's good to know about this edit criteria is on some projects that are quite large, right, I may want to have a separate door and window schedule for each floor of my building, right, if I have a multi-story building. And so I could add the criteria, for example, that I'm going to schedule only doors that are on my floor 1 layer, right? Or maybe you've got a remodel and you've got existing doors and you want a schedule of those, and then you've got another layer for your new construction and you have other doors there. You don't want them all mixed up in the same schedule. Maybe you want a schedule of existing doors so that you can note which ones are to remain and which ones are to be removed. And then you've got another schedule for new doors and so forth. So knowing that you can edit these criteria to filter what shows up, what populates that door schedule is that's extremely useful. And again, the key here is show your database headers. I just leave them on all the time now. I don't bother ever turning them off because, you know, I may need to fine tune the schedule. And right click on here, and then you've got these options. And edit criteria is the one that you're looking for. Okay. Any other questions so far on that sort of out of the box door schedule? All right. Well, we can circle back to it. It's there. And again, it's on the drawing, but if I delete it, that's not a problem. I'll just go to my resource manager and show my worksheets. And you can see, here's my, where'd it go? Oh, looking at the wrong file. Here's my door schedule demonstration. That's the one we just created. Just because I delete it from the drawing doesn't mean I can't just reinsert it. I could have multiple instances of it. In that sense, the insertion in the drawing is kind of like a symbol. If I change one, I change them all. So that's, you know, that's good to know. So it so happens that I've got a custom door schedule that I created for this project, right? I'll go ahead and double click on that. And here it is. If I go ahead and show my database headers, right? Again, you can see I can right click on this and edit the criteria. You can see that it's anything whose field value on schedule is true, it's going to show up in that door schedule. Now, there are many different plugin objects that have this setting, right? Windows have this setting, doors have this on schedule setting. So how does it know to only put doors here and not windows? Well, if I look at this field value here, right? And I look at on schedule, you can see that as I'm scrolling up, that this is the on schedule. There it is. If I scroll up and up and up some more and a little bit further, there we go. You'll see that it is a field in this door database record. And so in a sense, by saying, by making this the criteria, I've just given myself one line. I don't need to tell it, look for the door objects and then look for door objects that have on schedule checked, right? I can just tell it, look for objects that have the door on schedule checked. Only doors will have that. And so, yay, I saved myself one tiny little line of code. And the other nice thing about this set criteria feature is that it gives you a preview of how many objects are going to meet that criteria. And that's really great because I may not know that there are 28 doors in this project. But I know that there aren't 700 and I know there aren't 3, right? So oftentimes as I'm setting this up, I might get a number here that is wildly out of keeping with what I'm expecting to see. And so that tells me, you know, that I need to think about how I set this up. I probably made a mistake, in other words, right? So that little preview of number of objects that meet this criteria, chances are you know your project well enough to know whether that number is roughly correct. So there we go. So you can see that I've got over here in, let me zoom in a little bit more. Right, over here in the key column in the database, I've got door.id label. For width, I've got door.width. For height, I have door.height, and so on. These are the exact same, you know, probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, whenever. I took one of those schedules like the one I showed you first, and I kind of edited down to something that I liked, and then it just kind of keeps getting passed along from project to project. So anyway, so I've, you know, it's essentially the same thing, only I've reduced it down to something that's, you know, more appropriate to a smaller project like this. Yeah. So Matthew wants to know if you look in the chat, if I made a door type schedule where no matter how many times I add a type, it only shows up once on the schedule, would that also be through criteria? Great question. No. Let me go ahead and pop over to the Windows schedule. So resource, where'd you go there? Resource manager. Here we go. And I got a Windows schedule over here. So let's go ahead and open that and take a peek. Very, very similar. Yeah. And let's go ahead and also show these database headers. So you can see that over here, when I highlight this cell, right, I can click on it. You can't see it because it's obscured. You can see that I'm asking it to go ahead and sort by ascending. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on and so forth, right? And then I can also summarize the items. And that's what that little sigma icon means. And so what it's going to do is if I have multiple instances of Windows C, which in fact I do, right? If you look over here under quantity, I've got 3 instances of Windows C, but it doesn't show CCC. It just shows Windows C. And that's because I've asked Vectorworks through this little widget here to summarize all the items that have the same ID label. Now, you may not use ID labels to summarize. You could ID door type A, door type B, door type C, right? And so you could have a column for door type, label those as a user field, and then go ahead and summarize them so that all the door A's would have the same entry on your schedule. Does that answer your question? Yep, okay, good. Terrific. So yeah, so that's really the only difference fundamentally or functionally between my door schedule and my window schedule, which is that for my window schedule, I've just gone ahead and summarized all of the objects that are have the same key, as is fairly common practice in residential projects. And again, if let's see, where is my window? Oh, here's my window schedule. There it is. So yeah, there's the window schedule. And then, I've gone ahead and added some kind of standard notes at the bottom. You can see that fields 3.1 through 3.14, those are essentially sort of subcells of row 3 that is being defined by all of this scripting that's in each of the individual cells so that it populates all of those. It shows the head heights and everything's formatted the way I like and so on and so forth. But then I could go ahead and add more cells at the bottom of the schedule or above it that have nothing to do with this automatic scheduling. So I can have these sort of standard notes that kind of tag along at the bottom. And that works just fine. So I can make my schedules just a little more, a little more complicated or have a little bit more information than just strictly speaking what is being reported by the object. I can also have these additional notes. I think there was something else I was going to add to that, but it escapes my mind at the moment. So that's essentially how I generate door and window schedules. And oh, I know. Frequent question I get is how do you do the banding, right? The gray bands there. You'll notice that if I open the window schedule, they don't appear here. So the truth is those are just rectangles. They're just black filled rectangles that I've shaded to, whatever, 20%, 15%, whatever seems right. And then I've just arrayed them to sit here. And usually what I'll do is I'll just make a bunch of duplicates of the same, and I'll just use the, I'll just place one at the last, one at the first row, and one at the last row, and I'll sort of count the number of rows to see how many I need. And then I will simply use the align distribute and distribute them so that they're evenly spaced. Right, so long as my rows are evenly spaced. So that's my little kludge. There is not a way to add a column. So you can add rows at the bottom to answer Harlan's question. You can add rows at the bottom, but you can't add a column at the end. That is not part of the data of that door, window, or whatever object is being reported, to my knowledge. Okay, so I'm not limited to doors and windows or even custom objects. So also have a lighting plan here, and this is kind of an old school approach, and then I'll show you a more modern approach to scheduling things that are not plugin objects like doors and windows. So if we look at this gimbaled recess can, this wall washer here, if I show you that in the object info palette, you can see that it's a symbol. Let me leave my object palette open. Okay. And if I double click and edit that symbol, you can see it's a very dumb thing. It is not fancy. It's just some lines and circles and an arc in various classes with various graphic properties. And then I've got this octagon. It's just a polygon with some text to it. And what I've done, if I edit the symbol, as I just did, you'll see that the text says P1. And when I exit the symbol, you'll see that this one says R2. But this one over here says R4. Now those are the exact same symbol. Here's you'll see the symbol name here is light, wall washer, light, wall washer, exact same symbol. One is displaying R4, one is displaying R2. So let's look at the data tag, the data tab of the object info palette. And you can see that when I look at this symbol right here under record formats, there is a light fixture record that has been attached to this symbol. And that light fixture record has a variety of fields associated with it. So let's go over to our resource manager and kind of dig in a little deeper here. So I'm going to display not worksheets here, but record formats. And you can see the record formats that are in this file. And here's the light fixture record format. Now this is something that we just kind of built ourselves. It doesn't, there's probably a similar one that ships with Vectorworks. And this is one that we just kind of created. So let me edit that. And so a record format is simply a way of organizing data that you may want to tabulate or display later, or in this case, attach to various objects in Vectorworks. So I've got 8 different fields for this record format. So that would correspond to the 8 different columns that would show up on a light fixture record. So you can think of each field as being like a column on a schedule. I'm sorry, light fixture schedule. So I've got the key, the type, who the manufacturer is, the model, the description, what the finish is, the lamping, and maybe the power in wattage. And you'll notice that all of these are defined, all of these fields are defined as text. So in other words, whatever I write, that's what's going to display. But I've specified that the power field is going to be a number, and that's going to let me perform some arithmetic with any data that is assigned to this particular field. All right, so step number 1, if you want to go ahead and create a custom schedule for yourself where you're going to attach data to a bunch of objects that are in your file. So step number 1 is to go ahead and create a record format. And again, just go to your resource manager, new record format. I just right clicked here in the file, and you can just start creating a bunch of fields, create some default values, or the default values can be blank. And you may decide later on, oh, I need to change the order of those fields. I don't like the order that they're in, so you can just grab them and change the order. So, maybe power comes right after manufacturer, for example. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because you are not required to create the columns in your schedule. They don't have to be in the same order as this record format. So step number one, create yourself a record format. So I've gone ahead and done that. And then there's the way to go ahead and have that display is that in you're going to want to use symbols for this, right? And so in your symbol, as I've just shown you, in the 2D component, somewhere in there, you're going to want to put a text block. All right, and then with one text block in your symbol highlighted, not two text blocks, not no text blocks, just one, you'll go to the modify menu and link text to record. This command only works inside a symbol. It only works if you have a text block inside a symbol selected. Very specialized command. And it'll list, when you activate this command, it'll list all of the record formats that are in your file. And so you'll find the one that you want to link to. So in this case, the light fixture record. And then when I highlight the light fixture record, it'll display all of the fields. So here's my, I don't know, my door record. There's all the bunch of door record stuff. It shows all of its fields. So here's the light fixture record, that's all those. And what I want it to display is the key, right? Like this is light number 1, number 2, number 3, number 7, whatever. So I'll hit OK. And then when I exit that, if I select the symbol, you can see that I've got this key in the record format field that has been attached to this symbol. And so I can change it from an R4 to, I don't know, an R7. And it displays that text, R7, and it doesn't display that text anywhere else in any of the other instances of that symbol. So if I just had a text block that I just stuck in here and typed R7, for example, right? If it's just an ordinary text block and I leave the symbol, you can see that that R7 has now shown up for every one of these symbols. And that's definitely not what I want. So the link text to record allows me to customize the appearance of the text. The formatting stays the same, but it changes the text string itself on each symbol on a case-by-case basis. I think I'm going to want to change this back to an R2. So, yeah, but by the way, Matt or anybody else, if you'd like for me to send you a copy of these, I'm very happy to send them to you. Honestly, the ones that ship with Vectorworks are, you know, more detailed than ours, but that's okay. So I think I moved something here. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at that lighting schedule. Where did it? There it is. Okay. So here's the lighting schedule. Okay. And let me zoom a little bit. So there's R2. It's a recess cam gimbal. It has the model number and all the information here, right? And you can see that I've got quantity over here. And if I go ahead and go to my view and show my database headers, you can see there's the syntax, right? Equals, so that's a formula, light fixture record in single quotes, dot key in single quotes. So it's going to display anything with a light fixture record, and it's going to display the key field of that record in this column. Type, same record. Manufacturer, same record format. Model, description, and so on. Now, you know, maybe, let me zoom back out just a little. You'll remember when we looked at that, let's look at that record format, that I've got power over here, right? And it is not showing up here because I just don't have that column set up. So but what I might do is I might go ahead and insert a column here, right? And I'm just going to copy these two cells and paste them. Oh, sorry, don't want to paste them together. Paste over here. So basically, I've just replicated this finish column. Okay, and then here I'm going to change the finish to power, because that is the name of that field. And I'll hit return. And you know, I haven't assigned wattages to all of these light fixtures, but what I could do is I could see that I have a, you know, I could go ahead and create a total. Right. And so I could find out if I was meticulous about having the wattage for every single one of my light fixtures, I could find out what my total wattage was for all of my fixtures. And of course, wattage is essentially a measure of power, not light output. So wattage would be applicable to fans and, you know, any electrical device. And then I could figure out what my power density was, what my wattage per square foot of my project, and, you know, that might be a useful tool for making some selections to meet energy codes, for example. Now you'll notice that sometimes you will get a cell here that has 3 dashes or hyphens in it. What does that mean? What that means is that I have multiple instances of R2, right? And they all have the exact same text string under description, under model, under manufacturer, under type, right? But they don't all have the same wattage. So I wasn't meticulous here, and I didn't assign wattage correctly to all of these things. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the item, right? And what I might do is I might use my, let's see, I just have one. It just selects them in order. It only selects one of them. It doesn't select all. So now that I've found one, what I could do is go to my custom selection tool, select similar, my magic wand, right? And under settings, I'm going to select, let's see. I'll go ahead and select every symbol name that has the same database records. So now I've got 27 of these. And do you see that it is only selected the R2s, it didn't select the R4, even though that's the exact same symbol, because it doesn't have these all have the same key designation, R2. Right, and so now I can go over to the tab and you can see that the lamping is not the same. So I'm just going to write LED here for all the lampings. Maybe I'll say, you know, CRI 90 plus, 3000 K for my color temperature, get nice and detailed. And maybe these are all, I'm going to make something up. 8 watts is probably wrong, but not too far off. So I've gone ahead and assigned that to every one of these. Right, let's leave that object info palette open to every single one of these. And now if I go to my lighting record, and I can go under file and I could recalculate all worksheets, which I probably may not want to do, or recalculate the active worksheet, just this one. And I wonder why it's not doing that. Oh, well, I don't have a lamping number there. That's interesting. So it's bidirectional. So that should be working. All right, so let's go ahead and insert a column. Make it significantly narrower. Copy, paste, lamping. There we go. And it looks like I still missed some here. So if I select over here, I could not summarize these. And now I'm going to get every single one. And you can see there's one that I missed over here somehow. So I'll copy that and paste in here. And then I'll go back and re-summarize. Right. And then here I can go ahead and I think if I sum values, that's going to be helpful. There we go. So in my wattage column, I'm going to summarize some of the values. And so now that's starting to give me some, you know, more meaningful numbers in terms of my total wattage. So whenever I see these little dash lines in one of my cells, that's telling me that I've got two instances of the same, say, light fixture or the same window if I'm summarizing windows, and they're not actually identical. They have the same key number, but they're not identical, and so I need to go back and track them down and hunt them. All right, I see a couple of questions in the chat, so let's see. Oh, Rob Hollis is saying bye. So Matthew's asking if my legend is also a report which references my symbols. I think you mean, Matt, this legend. Is that correct? This one here? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so this is just a symbol, and I've just inserted some of these symbols, some of my light fixture symbols in this overall symbol. But I'm very careful, or at least I should be if I want to correct wattage and quantity takeoff. I'm very careful under my edit criteria for my light fixture schedule. What I should do is make sure that I'm not searching within symbols, especially, or I could say viewport annotations too. So in other words, I don't want any symbol, any light fixtures that I'm just putting in a legend to inadvertently show up on this schedule. So that, again, you want to be a little meticulous with your criteria, your search criteria in your database header. I mentioned earlier that this was kind of an old school way of doing a lighting layout, because all of these objects are lights, of course, and they're all symbols. And I have the tag, the key bubble, as actually part of the symbol. And you know, that generally works. But if I want to rotate this fan because I don't want it to be perfectly orthogonal to the page because it just looks not very stylish, and I want to rotate it some random, 27 degrees or something, you can see that the F2, the fan number 2 designation, also rotates with the fan, or so that's one drawback. And then the other drawback is I turned off all of my switch legs just to make this kind of a little tidier to look at. Let me turn them back on, right? So as I'm drawing my switch legs, I'm having to avoid bumping into these keys. And so sometimes I may need to take that symbol and mirror it or flip it, like in this case, right? So I have, by making the key part of the symbol, I just have somewhat limited myself in my layout options. Right, here's another one where that key has to be rotated 90 degrees because this fixture, this under counter light, is rotated 90 degrees. Okay, Keith, thanks for popping by. Let's see. So there's another option, a more modern approach to this, and I'm gonna have to flip over to another file to show you that. But before I do, any questions about what we've looked at so far? And you don't need to put it in the chat, you're welcome to, but if you want to just hit your space bar and unmute yourself and ask a question, that's cool too. Nope. All right. I'm going to need to do a new share here. Can you all see this new reflected ceiling plan?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Guy. Okay, so let's have a look at this file. Little commercial space. Oh, I don't want to go to annotation, sorry. That's a viewport, and I'm going to go directly to the design layer. So what you'll notice is that some of these objects are just like what I've just shown you, a lighting plan. And if I double click on this pendant, you'll see that I have included this bubble as part of the pendant. But let's look over here. Check out light fixture S6. It's this little linear cove, concealed cove lighting. Okay. And if I zoom over here to the design layer where this thing resides, you're going to see two interesting things. One is that there is no keyed bubble that's attached to it as part of the symbol. Number one. Number two, you'll see that it's not a symbol at all, it's a wall. I rather perversely created a linear light wall style. It's just an inch wide and an inch tall, and it shows up as a dashed line. And so when I'm doing like under cabinet lights, or, you know, since we're well past the days of fluorescent tubes or whatever, we just do lines of LED ropes, right? Then I can draw straight walls, curved walls, whatever. And so these lights are not symbols at all. They're just represented by this wall style. And if I click on the data tag, you can see that if I click on the light fixture record, that I have gone ahead and attached a record format to this wall. So I'm not limited to attaching record formats to symbols. I can attach record formats to anything: a symbol, a wall, a floor, you know, an extrusion, anything. Any Vectorworks object can have a record format attached to it. Before we had data tags, that I'm about to get into here in just a second, before we had data tags, really the best way to display these kinds of key bubbles was using the link text to record command and using symbols. But now that we have data tags, we're sort of liberated in the sense that we don't have to make symbols out of everything, which is nice. And also the data tag or the object tag, the key bubble, doesn't have to be on the design layer. Let me dump. I'm back over here to the viewport on the drawing label, or the sheet layer, excuse me. I'm going to go into the annotations, right? And you can see that this is a data tag object, and it is seeing and finding this light fixture. So let's talk about data tags. I'm going to go over to my symbols here, and here's my data tag style. So here's my lighting data tag. I'll go ahead and edit that. There's a ton of data tags that come out of the box. They are in some ways symbol-like. I think the way we made this one is we just took an existing one and we just modified it. But you could just take your data tag, create a data tag, or insert one that ships with Vectorworks and then edit it to your heart's content. And if you click on data tag, edit tag layout, you get this sort of preview. It looks kind of like a 2D component of a symbol, right? And then here's the text that gets displayed as the key. And you can see that at the bottom, once I've selected this text, you can see that it says tag layout data. And then there's this checkbox that says use dynamic text. So I'm going to be sure and check that and define the tag field. And here we go. There's the tag field. And what I can do is I can simply choose either object parameters or any of these other potential functions, but I want record format. I created that light fixture record. It's the same one that I showed you in the other file. And so I will just, having chosen to display that text dynamically from a record format, I'll choose which record format. Here are all the record formats that are in this file. So there's my light fixture record, right? And then which field of that record format. So this is very much like the old link text to record command. And I suspect, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that sort of under the hood, the coding for this is all very similar. It's just a sort of more modern approach where now I've got this object that I can format. You know, this is just a polygon. I can change the line weight. I can change the text style and so forth, right? So I'll just cancel that. And so now in my notes and dimensions, right, I can just go ahead and select a data tag, and then here's all the data tags that are in this file. And there's my lighting data tag, right? And you can see that whenever I hover over an object that has the lighting record format attached to it, even this one, right? Or in this case, this wall, that will light up red, and that will tell me that I can go ahead and insert the data tag. And then once I've inserted it, I can just move it wherever I want. And you can see that when I click on it, it gives me this little linked data tag icon. That does not print, that's just for you to see. So you know that this, we're referring to this S6, not that one over there, not that one over here, right? I can just delete this one. So there it is. And so that gives me a lot more flexibility, because now I'm putting the data tag in the annotations of the viewport instead of directly on the design layer. And I can move it wherever I want, right? So, you know, I could just go ahead and tag all of these guys. I could do it individually, or I could use this function here, all eligible objects. So with the lighting data tag, it just, boom, it just, I just click once and it will assign a data tag to every single object in this viewport that has the lighting data tag attached to it. So now I'm going to need to go back and clean up all of my old symbols. But that's an option, right? That's an option. So that's a more, again, more modern way to key in your symbols. But ultimately, since our topic is, you know, schedules, right? Ultimately, that tag, whether it's part of the symbol or a data tag, is reporting what is on that light fixture schedule. So Matthew wanted to know if the record in the wall is embedded in that wall style. So the way that I did it is I want a record format that I can use for wall styles, for that crazy little string light, or for symbols, or for anything else. So the record format isn't embedded to that wall style itself. I have to attach it to those walls. So it's the latter. So that's, you know, that's the trade-off. I chose to take a route where I have a lot of flexibility. Anything can populate my light fixture schedule, but in order to get that flexibility, I have to do a little bit more work myself. It's a little less automated. Now, if you were going to, say, create a wall type schedule, right, then all you care about are actual wall types. Just like a door schedule, all you care about are actual doors. And so in that case, you could simply create a schedule that pulled the data not from an attached record format to walls, but pulled data from the wall itself. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that if we go to Tools, Reports, Create a Report, if I filter for wall, here's a wall style report with images. You know, there's all sorts of wall schedules that Vectorworks sort of will build for you, and then you can just kind of tweak it. And then the last thing I wanted to point out on schedules is that this is perhaps old news to some of you. Here's furniture plan. I've gone ahead and added a data record to all of these objects. Again, by attaching a record format to the object, it's a little more work for me. But this ottoman, let's have a look at it. This ottoman is just a floor. It's literally a floor object. We drew a circle, we made it a floor. It, you know, it's doesn't need to be a very detailed model. It's perfectly happy just the way it is. This rug is just an image prop. It's a symbol with an image prop inside of it. This couch is a symbol, but you know, some of these objects are just Vectorworks doors and not doors. I'm sorry, just Vectorworks kind of generic chairs and tables from the table and chair layout. So again, nice thing about a record format is that I can attach it to anything. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and back to my furniture plan. Let's go ahead and create under tools, create a report. Okay. And instead of a pre-formatted report, I'm going to go custom here. And I'll call it my furniture schedule. There we go. And the basic criteria is going to be objects with a record. These are all the many records that are in the file. Many of these are record formats that are invisibly embedded to parametric objects, plugin objects like doors and windows and so forth. But here's my furniture record that I made ahead of time. Very similar to that lighting record that I showed you earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and search within symbols, maybe not viewport annotations. Maybe I've got referenced or non-referenced viewport, so I could look there too. And here's all of the possible columns that I could have. And I'm just going to add them all. And you can see that the order is not quite what I want. So I'll move the key is number 1. Then the description can be number 2, then the manufacturer, then the model, type between key and description. Great. So I can go ahead and order these in whatever order I want. And I could go ahead and summarize all the items with the same furniture record description or not. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. There's my furniture record. Let me zoom that up so we can see it. And you know, needs a little bit of formatting help. None of these have a description. As you can see, I have a lot of work still to do. To get this just the way I like it. That's okay. So we can call it good for now. So there's my schedule. If I don't like the grid, I'll just under pen here in the object info palette, or I'm sorry, attributes palette, set that to none. You know, and here we go. There's my furniture schedule. For whether it's doors, windows, whatever. Let me see if I can go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and edit that. I'm going to go ahead and add a column. Okay. And then over here, I am going to so you can see that in my database row 2, I'm going to insert an image function, which is just equals image. And you can see that it's showing me a tiny little plan view of all of those pieces of furniture. So now I can format, I can highlight that. And if I, let's see, yeah, if I right click on that, oh, that's not what I want. Format my cell. There we go. So I can format that cell, and you can see that there's an image tag. So I can do a thumbnail, right, which is what I want, but maybe instead of a top plan, I want a right isometric. And I want to show that as a shaded. And maybe I just want a 1-point margin. And I want that to be a little bit bigger, say 36 by 36 points. And hit OK. And it will go ahead and show me this little preview here. Obviously, that makes the schedule quite a bit taller, but that might be something that would be, helpful for me to display. And so I could, also use this for my door schedule or my window schedule, and show, say, doors or windows in front elevation. So that's another great little feature for certain types of schedules where you may want to go ahead and add an image. And again, since these are a mix of different objects, symbols, floors, whatever, then I would go ahead and tag those using the data tag. I'd create a custom data tag for furniture, and then I could go ahead and tag those on my furniture layout plan like that. So, any questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, really appreciate everybody attending and popping by. Thanks for the great questions. If you need some of these help with some of these resources, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be happy to.
Francois, I've got a quick question.
Sure.
So for that, the furniture record format that you should set up, if you selected summarize, for instance, then all of your F1s would just show up as one bar seat, and then off to the right somewhere there'd be a column that would read 3 or 4 actually.
Yeah, so I added the quantity. So let me show you that. So I'm just going to right click under key and just summarize that. Okay, so now it summarizes all of them. They don't all have the same, right? Like I didn't go ahead and label all of them. So that's the other thing is I've got these in different rooms, right? So if I undo the summarize, some of these are in the kitchen. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, there's something that's not quite.
Maybe there's a field that's not showing up on the schedule, but it's different.
But the data is different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and in this field, in this column over here, I would just go equal count. Which, I mean, much to my chagrin, is not the count from Sesame Street. I mean, kind of. Anyway, so I can go ahead and format that. Okay. And
Oops.
Yeah, I'm having to summarize multiples to have those show up properly. But that did it. Whoops, that did it. So now you've got one bar stool. They're all F1. It's a bar seat, and they're all in the kitchen, and there's 4 of them.
Got it.
Right. There's 2 queen beds. They're both in guest bedrooms. So that's cool. In fact, there's a 3rd queen bed. I didn't label that F9, but I can do that, right? Because it's bidirectional.
Mhm.
And then if that one the reason that, yeah, that one's not showing up the same, because I actually, that's this one over here
Mhm.
that I showed grayed out in order to show that that could be a bedroom, but really it's not used as a bedroom. Anyway, so now my schedule is considerably more compact
Got it.
because all
Thank you.
the right. But you can see, you know, I'm still a bit of a work in progress. Obviously, F1, this is not a couch. Just so we know that I know that that's not a couch. All right,
Excellent.
let's see.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks again for your time and attention. And as usual, when I get this recording back and run some filters to make myself seem much smarter, then I'll go ahead and post it on YouTube. And see you next month or sooner.